My name is Sumit. The topic which I am going to explain today is the topic of mathematics called polynomials, which is a basic topic in the classes 6 to 8. So let's start. So polynomials. So to understand what are polynomials, first we have to understand few terms which are related to polynomials. So what is the first term which is related to polynomial? The term is variable. Now, variable means what? Variable means what and what does it include? So we can say that variable includes what does it include? It includes alphabets. It includes alphabets, that is starting from A to Z. All these alphabets are considered as variable. So variable includes alphabets. But what does variable means? Variable means it doesn't have fixed value. Understood? It does not have fixed value. That means variables are nothing but those alphabets which do not have fixed value. I hope you understand. So it includes alphabets, that is A to Z. And what does it mean? It means that it does not have a fixed value. Variable means it does not have a fixed value. So we know that when we solve questions, right, somewhere the value of x can be 1, somewhere the value of x can be minus 5, somewhere the value of x can be 7, right, somewhere the value of y can be 2, somewhere the value of y can be minus 1, somewhere the value of y can be 8, right, and so on. So what does this show? This shows that all the alphabets are variables and the same variable can have different values in different positions. Understood? So that is why variables don't have fixed value. I hope you understood my point. So every variable don't have a fixed value. Means in every position the same variable can have different values. That is why they are known as variables. I hope you understand. Now the second term which you should know is a constant. What is the second term? The second term is a constant. Constant. Now what does constant includes? Constant includes numbers. It includes numbers, right? Numbers starting from 0, 1, 2 and so on, because number never ends. So it includes number, right? But what does constant means? Constant means the opposite of variable. Here constant means that it have a fixed value, because constant includes what? Numbers, and the value of numbers never change. That means the value of 1 is always 1, the value of 2 is always 2, the value of 3 is always 3 and so on. The value of the number never changes, right? 1 will always be 1, 2 will always be 2. So it means that constant means what? It have a fixed value. Unlike variable, understood? Where the same variable can have different values, in constant we can see that constant have a fixed value because it includes numbers, right? So the value of 1 will always be 1, the value of 2 will always be 2, the value of 3 will always be 3. This is the second term which you should know. Now getting on to the next term, what is the next thing you should understand is the fundamental signs. Fundamental signs. So what are the fundamental signs that we use in mathematics? It includes plus, minus, division and multiplication. These are the 4 fundamental signs that we use basically in mathematics, right? Now we know till now what we studied. Till now we studied a constant. What do you mean by a constant? You studied a constant. And what do you mean by a variable? You studied a variable. So now to understand what is a polynomial, you should understand that polynomial is nothing but a combination of constant plus variable plus any of these fundamental signs. Understood? Means when constant, variable and any of these fundamental signs, they combine together to form what? They combine together to form a polynomial. They combine together to form a polynomial. I hope you understand. So we can see an example of polynomial. What is an example of polynomial? Let's say 2 is a constant, x is a variable, and we are using a fundamental sign plus, and we are again using a constant called 1. So this will be considered as a polynomial. And you can see that it has a constant, it has a variable, it has a fundamental sign. So all these combine to form a polynomial. So I hope you understand what is a polynomial now. Now, when you have understood what is a polynomial, the next thing what we should understand is how to differentiate between number of terms. Means in polynomial, the number of terms can be 1, the number of terms can be 2, the number of terms can be 3. Right? So how to differentiate whether the number of term is 1 or whether the number of term is 2 or whether the number of term is 3? It is very simple. So you see, if there is a 2 and there is a x, what we call it? It is a 2x, right? It is 2x. Is there any sign present between them? Is there any sign present between them? No. That means when between a constant and between a variable there is no sign present, it means there is a sign of multiplication, right? We don't usually write it, but you should know that when there is no sign between them, there is a multiplication sign, which we don't write often. But we should remember that if there is no sign, there is a sign of multiplication. Understood? So now tell me, how many terms are there? How many terms are there? So many of the students will say, sir, there are 2 terms, 2 and x. 2 is one term and x is another term. So there is a 2 term. Is it? But the answer is no. Why? Because it is one term only. Now why only one term is there? Students will ask that, sir, here is 2 and x. So there are 2 terms. Why have you written one term? So you have to understand that it doesn't matter how many terms is there. The only thing you should remember is unless and until there are signs of multiplication between numbers, right? Unless and until there are signs of multiplication between numbers, it will be considered as one term. Maybe the number can be 50 numbers, the number can be 100 numbers, right? For example, x into y into z into a into b into c dot dot dot. Let the number can be any number, right? 10 numbers, 20 numbers. But if the sign between the numbers is of multiplication, the entire number will be considered as one term, unless and until multiplication sign is present there. I hope you understand. So this is about one term. How can we say that it is one term? Unless and until there is a sign of multiplication present between them, all the terms will be considered as entirely as one term, if multiplication sign is present between them. Now moving on to the next is 2 terms. How can we say about 2 terms? 2 terms means, now 2 terms means what? See, 2x, this is one term or 2 term. Just now I told you that it is one term because there is a sign of multiplication between them which we don't write. So it is one term. Now when this will be separated from another term? Until and unless there is a sign of plus or minus between them. So this is one term, and if there is a sign of plus and here is another term called 1, now this will be considered as 2 terms. Understood? This will be considered as 2 terms. Why? Because there is a sign of plus between 2x and 1. So whenever there is a sign of plus or minus between 2 terms, for example 3x and there is 2. So it can be 3x plus 2 or it can be 3x minus 2. Right? So terms are separated when there is a sign of plus or minus between them. Understood? Understood? Whenever there will be a sign of plus or minus between the terms, then it will be considered as 2 different terms. If the sign is only of multiplication, it will be considered as one term. But if the sign between these 2 terms is a plus or a minus, this will be considered as 2 different terms. So now about 3 terms. How can we consider about 3 terms? 3 terms, right? 3 terms means, for example, let's say 2x, this is one term because there is a sign of multiplication between them, so it will be considered as one term. Now we are using a fundamental sign plus, and we are taking here, let's say here is a square, and let's say here is a x, and again we are taking a plus, or let's say a minus, and here is a 2. Understood? So this entirely is one term because there is a sign of multiplication between them. When there is a sign of plus, these two are different terms, and when there is a sign of minus between these two are different terms. So one term, two term, and three terms. So there are three terms because there is two fundamental signs between them, right? So this is entirely is one term, this is second term, and this is third term. And what is separating them? The sign of plus and minus. I hope you understood about one term, two term, and three term. Now depending on the number of terms, polynomials can be of three major types, right? Three major types. What are they? The first is monomial. The second is binomial. The second one is binomial. The third one is trinomial. So how are these polynomials different from each other? It differs according to the number of terms. Monomial is a polynomial with one term. Example, 2x. This is one term only because there is a sign of multiplication between them. So it is one term. So it is an example of monomial. Let's say 3xy. This is also one term because still there is sign of multiplication between them. So it is still only one term. So it is also an example of monomial. Now binomial means polynomial with two terms. Let's say example 2x plus. Now when we use this plus or minus, this entirely is one term, and when we use plus or minus, it becomes another term, 3y. So this is another term. So this is an example of binomial, which means two terms. And trinomial, which means three terms. Let's say an example of, so 2x plus 3y plus 5. See, this is entirely one term, this is another term, this is third term, and there is a sign of plus between all these three, which is separating them and making them three different terms. So it will be considered as trinomial. So these are the types of polynomial on the basis of number of terms. And there is also a fourth one, which is called a polynomial. A polynomial, right? When the number of terms are 4 or more. When the number of terms are 4 or more, then it is considered as polynomial. Let's say 2x square plus xy minus x plus 5. So how many terms are there? 4. Or you can add one more term, 5y plus 6. Right? So there are 4 terms or more than 4 terms. So if there is 4 or more than 4 terms, it will be considered as a polynomial. Once you have understood types of polynomials, we will move on to what is degree. Right? What is degree? Degree is nothing but highest power. Degree is nothing but highest power. Highest power. Let's say, for example, 2x cube plus x square plus 3x minus 2. This is a polynomial. Why? Because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So if 4 or 4 terms, it is considered as a polynomial. Right? Now let's see what is the highest power here. When we see the power, we will see the power of the variable, not the constant. Always we will see the power of the variables, right? So let's compare. Here the power of this x is how much? There is no power, that means the power is 1. If there is no power, that means it has a power of 1. Now this x has a power 2 and this x has a power 3. So what is the highest power of this polynomial? The highest power is 3, right? So the degree of this polynomial will be 3. Am I clear? I hope you understood what is degree. Degree means the highest power of the polynomial. So the highest power of that polynomial will be the degree of that polynomial. So the degree of this polynomial is how much? 3. Understood? Sometimes the question becomes like, sometimes it is 2x square. For example, it is 2x cube. plus here it is 2x square y 3 plus 5x square plus 3y minus 2. Let's say this is a polynomial because there are more than 4 terms, right? So what is the degree of this polynomial? What is the degree? So the degree of this polynomial, you will see the highest power. What is the highest power now? So it has a power 1, so 1, it has a power 2, it has a power 3, right? And but so now you will say that, sir, the degree will be 3, but that is not the case. Why? Because in this case where 2x square y cube is present, in this case the overall power will be addition of these two powers, right? So 2 plus 3, so the overall power here will be how much? 5. Understood? So the highest power is these two, this one. This will give you the highest power after addition of these two. It will give 5, right? So see, the power here is 3, the power here is 2, the power here is 1, and this is the maximum power, highest power. So the degree of this polynomial will be 5. I hope you understand. So this is called the degree. Now on the basis of degree, earlier we studied the types of polynomial on the basis of terms, right? If there is one term, it is known as monomial. If there is two terms, it is known as binomial. If there are three terms, it is known as trinomial, and 4 or more terms are called polynomials, right? But there are more 3 types of polynomial on the basis of degree. So this is types of polynomial on the basis of degree. That means it will depend on what is the degree of that polynomial. We'll give the type of the polynomial, right? So number 1 is linear polynomial. The first one is linear polynomial. Why it is called linear polynomial? Because it will have degree 1. Understood? Always the degree will be 1. That is, for example, let's say 2x plus 1, 3y minus 2, right? So what is the variable here? X. Here variable is 1. So what is the power of x and y? 1. So all the polynomials having power 1 will be considered as linear polynomial because they have the degree 1, right? Number 2 is quadratic polynomial. Quadratic polynomial means it should have the degree 2. It should have the degree 2. For example, let's say 2x square minus x plus 1. So the highest power here is 2. So the degree is 2. So it is known as a quadratic polynomial, right? What is the third? Third is cubic polynomial. Cubic polynomial. What do you mean by cubic polynomial? When the degree will be 3. It will be called cubic polynomial. Understood? For example, let's say 3x cube plus 2x square minus x minus 2, right? So what is the maximum power? The power here is 1, the power here is 2, and the power here is 3. What is the maximum power? 3. So the degree is 3, and it will be considered as cubic polynomial. So these are the types of polynomial on the basis of degree. On the basis of degree, and what is degree? Degree is the highest power of the polynomial is called degree, right? Now moving on to the next topic is like and unlike terms, right? In polynomials there are two types of terms, like terms and unlike terms. Like terms are those terms with same variable, Like terms are those terms with same variable, and unlike terms are those terms with different variables. Understood? For example, let's see what are like polynomials with same variable. Means, for example, 2x and 3x are like polynomials. Like polynomials. Why? Like terms. Sorry. Why? Because both have the same variable, right? And like terms means what? With same variable. So these two are same. These two have same variables, so they are like terms. For example, minus 5y and 8y, right? So if minus is there is nothing to do with the minus. You just have to see the variable. If the variable is same, it will be considered as like term, right? What is unlike term? With different variable. Let's say 2x and 3xy. right? So these two are example of unlike terms. Why? Because it only has x and this has x and y both. So this is the x and y is a different variable, x alone is a different variable, right? So these are two terms with different variable, and that is why they are known as unlike terms. Understood? Clear? For example, another example you can see that 3xy and 2ab, right? So the variables are different, so it will be considered as unlike terms. I hope you understood. Now, this was the summary of the chapter polynomial, right? If you have any query, any doubt, you can comment me in the comment section.